really good play even before he tries to finish. And there's a lot of bodies in there, and you know, being able to go back up and finish. I think sometimes, you know, there's someone between him and the basket, and you know, one of the things he can do is kick it out to a shooter, or, you know, just try to get an angle. But there's a lot of traffic down there, so it's something that's difficult to work on. You know, we can have him grab it, and, you know, coaches can try to foul and things like that to get a guy to play through contact. But you know, if he's drawing a foul in that situation and getting to the line too, it's a good play.
With DeAndre being questionable, is there any update on him for tonight's game?
He'll keep his normal warm-up time, and you know, then the health performance team, Marty, will let me know how he's doing, and make a decision at that point.
On the road trip, I know you said you loved your defense more and more every single game.
I didn't say love, I don't think.
Liked your defense more, getting better every game, I'll rephrase. But with guys like Tatum, Brown, like what's the key to defending to, you know, sharpshooters like that?
Yeah, every team's different. You know, I think one of the things about, you know, not back-to-backs, but when you play a team, you know, back-to-back games, you're able to, I think, see the things that they do, and there's a little more familiarity, and it usually favors the defense. You know, with Boston being, you know, as potent offensively as they are, there's a lot of different schemes that they use based on their personnel. You know, with Horford spaced, and a lot of small pick and roll, and you know, their ability just to create one-on-one. I think Marcus Smart's unique in his way offensively as well. So a lot of challenges, you know, with little time to prepare. But that's part of it. You know, it's a different situation, and you get a chance to see how, you know, our team reacts after a back-to-back against, you know, arguably the best offense in the league.
Coach, you mentioned when you're speaking specifically about just preparation for Boston, just not a ton of time to do that, but just this whole transition to you being coach, there's not enough time to do all the things I know you want to do. When you look at all the moving pieces and parts that are going on, are there 2 or 3 that have been particularly challenging for you to kind of get where you want to be as quick as you want to get there?
Yeah. Well, let me say this. I think this is kind of a microcosm of what is usually for, I think, coaching in the NBA. It finds its way into the season no matter how many times, how many years. It always seems like there's something more to do. So it really, to prioritize, it's just even more important now. As far as, I think our spacing was something that was really a point of emphasis early. I think, you know, to play the right way and to make the right pass, and you know, to understand what those decisions are, you have to have options. And when you're not spaced, it sounds like such a simple thing, but it's dynamic. You can't just run down to certain spots and then run a play, because you know, we're trying to play more out of concepts, and what ends up happening is if we can gain an advantage, the defense reacts, you know, and then we have to respace. So it's a kind of a constant, but that would be one thing. And I think, you know, we've talked a lot about trying to protect the paint. You know, that's something. We gave up a lot of points in the paint last night, which Longo reminded me. But I think they had to work for him a little bit more. One of the things that's jumped out, and maybe it comes from a good place where we want to help each other, but we give up a lot of open catch and shoot threes because we're over helping. So that's not something that I thought of, you know, would be a focal point. But as we've played games, and you see how that impacts the game, that's something we've given a lot of attention to. It doesn't seem like, you know, it's not a big picture thing, but I think it's really important to us. Guys trying to help, but, you know, knowing when and where to do that. So, you know, those are a couple things. There's some adjustments that we've made in pick and roll defense, and then we've gone back to do some of the same things that we've done before and try to do them a little differently, where all those things are kind of interwound. You know, it's just a process, as you said too. Different teams, different games, you know, will show you different things, you know, that you want to work on. And then again, as you said, that's probably the overarching theme, is just you got to prioritize and figure out what you have time to do.
And just one really quick follow-up. You mentioned just the overhelp on defense. playing a team like Boston where you've got Tatum, you got Brown, but they've got a lot of other guys who are having some of their best seasons ever. Talk about the challenge of addressing that one issue that you feel you guys need to be better at, but knowing you're playing a team that they kind of feed off of that type of.
Yeah, well, I think it starts in transition. You know, that's been an emphasis for us. You know, you don't have a man in transition. There's kind of a sequence that you have to be conscious of. You know, to limit a team's kind of early thrust. You know, they catch and shoot threes usually are, you know, I mentioned transition, they're usually generated when people are beat. So trying to contain the ball is a big thing. It's one of the things we've talked to our guards about. It's a little counterintuitive, but sometimes being more aggressive, maybe that's not the right word, but having more of a presence on the ball, where someone's not just attacking you in space, but that's hard to do. You know, it's hard to keep Jaylen Brown in front of you. And then, you know, you gotta help, but you wanna control how you help so that you can actually have rotation. So if you can keep the ball out of the paint, however that, whether it's pick and roll or screening actions or just direct drives in isolation, you have a chance to, you know, to not have those shots be as open, you know, and be able to contest them and hopefully lower the percentages.
Going back to what you were saying about playing more out of concepts, it seems like there's a trend around the league of coaches kind of like lightening the playbook to be more, you know, read-based out of like a general kind of setup. Like Rick Carlisle talks a lot about not even really having set plays. Missoula only has a few plays and they kind of read out of it. So do you think that is more challenging to run as an offense, or it's actually easier?
Well, I remember George Karl talking about it years ago, and he at one point didn't put a play in because they wanted to run. I mean, that's a different concept, you know, but whatever the particular action is, it puts even more emphasis, as I said, on spacing. You know, I think it requires the same level of discipline, but you don't know what those reads are going to be over the course of an action. I think some of it has to do with players in the league, you know, are so skilled that it's almost, you know, if someone is capable of creating without a play, you know, those plays sometimes are there to generate shot opportunities. But if you can get that without running a play, sometimes the other becomes more about, you know, I guess I'm saying that it makes sense, right? That you don't need something if the players are they're that good. And I think shooting is that good. The skill level across different positions, I think, is part of it. Particularly if you have shooting at every position, shooting fives, that really changes how you can play because you're able to space the defense so much more. Where your bigs were just used as screeners, it required, I think, more structure. I don't know if that made any sense, but I think it's true what you're saying. We've been trying to do that for a long time, but I think as your personnel changes, there's different ways you have to do that. So, you know, concepts look different for each team as well.
Is a big part of it that there's just more fluidity in positions, so having like one guy at one position is supposed to be doing this and then action doesn't make as much sense, it kind of changes per play.
If those skill sets are similar, you know, and that's kind of what I was saying about a big, if you have a five that's not gonna shoot threes, they're probably not gonna guard him as much out on the floor, so then it's a question of how do you use them, and oftentimes those options are just much more limited when skill sets are more limited, you know. But those guys contribute a lot of other ways too.
Quin, the second unit has been
Maybe.
consistently good for you on both ends of the floor. What would you attribute that to? Because it seems that at times when you need a spark, they come in and done it on defense, obviously on offense too.
Yeah, I think it's a credit to those guys, you know, that whether it's, I was glad to see Bogey shoot instead of hesitate. I hope he reads this, or hears this, I should say. He's a big part of it, just kind of being able to make some shots and go on runs. I think DJ, you know, really can set a tone defensively, where we've got some stops and been able to run out of it. And then, you know, Jalen's played really well, you know, and he's a unique player in his ability to create. And as you mentioned, you know, impacting the game on both ends. The other night too, Sadiq's making threes. You know, I was really happy. I told O that I took him out of the game because I thought he kind of had more, and we agreed that we were gonna watch the tape and determine if that was the case. But he definitely, you know, he came in and gave us big minutes too. Just something as simple as making a great play defensively and verticality. So I think there's a lot of things that those guys are doing together, and I think they've got a little bit of a rhythm too.
Good to go. Okay.